Trauma is so damning and it is horrific, and anybody who's ever been through any kind of traumatic experience will understand that it ruins you from the inside out, because you have to deal with that trauma every single day, and it infuriates me so much. And I know so many people who are like this, and they say, oh well, it happened 20 years ago, it happened so long ago, just forget about it, just move on. And for anybody who's actually dealt with very serious trauma, you cannot do that. You carry it around with you every single day for the rest of your life, and people just don't understand unless you've been through that experience. Any kind of experience, the PTSD side of things from going through that experience is insane. Now, there's so many different things you can do to help yourself and help ease the pain of the trauma that you've gone through. And that is what's going to be coming up in my newest series, Project Bulletproof. And that is going to be basically what we're going to talk about over the coming months. But this is all about me, and I've not done this video because it is extremely painful. Like I've just said, anybody who's been through trauma knows how painful it is to talk about it again and again and again. But it's been quite a few years now. I feel like it is time, and there's a lot of clients that have asked me about the stuff that's happened, and I know there's a lot of people online and there's a lot of people I speak to on a daily basis that have been through trauma, that are struggling greatly, and that would need some help of some description. And I've not seen anywhere online, I've not seen anybody online speak about their own trauma, like in any way, if I'm going to be honest. I've seen a lot of therapists, I've seen a lot of people helping about trauma, I've seen a lot of people go online and say, oh yeah, do this, do that, but none of them sit there and say, well, I've been through this and therefore this is helped because of this. And I feel like that's what I would have needed. And that's what I did need. When I was going through my shit, I needed somebody who'd been through shit to teach me about the shit that helped them. And that's as simple as it sort of was. And so that's what this is going to be about. And it's going to be multiple videos because there's going to be so much to cram into one little thing. So the simplest way of putting it is, for over 10 years of my life, I was sexually and physically abused by members of my extended family. I can't see that being blocked by TikTok or Instagram at all, but and maybe that's why people aren't uploading, because they can't. I don't know, but I see a lot of crap on Instagram and TikTok, so I'm hoping this is be allowed. But yeah, that is the gist of it. For 10 years of my life, for the first 10 years of my life, when I was a child, I was physically and sexually abused by members of my family. Not just physically and sexually, mentally, spiritually, but it's, the worst was obviously that. Now, I haven't spoken to them in over 10 years, I think, probably about 10 years. It's been a long time. Actually, no, it hasn't been 10 years, not quite. But it's been a long time since I've spoken to them. Now, when you go through these things at such a young age, your brain cannot cope with the amount of stress that you're putting it under. And so what happens is you shove these memories to the back of your mind and you just don't think about them. You completely shut off from these experiences. And so for a massive portion of my life, the first 10 years of my entire life were completely shut off. I haven't had access to the memories of my first 10 years of my life for the majority of my life. Well, I'm on my 25 now. I found out about this when I was 22 after I left my previous girlfriend, and after I had my motorbike accident and I regressed. So yeah, 22 years old. So I've been living with this information for 3 years, three and a bit years, and it never gets easier. Obviously, I've only been living with these memories for the past 3 years, but I have had subconsciously the knowledge that something has happened to me for my entire life, and that's shown through behavior. So I've recently just finished my diploma in psychotherapy, and something that I realized while doing that is that there's so many different aspects of the brain and how it's wired with ADHD and schizophrenia, depression, anxiety. The brain is hardwired to do certain things in a survival situation. And when you go through something that traumatic at such a young age, you are in a state of fight, flight, freeze or flop, you know, or just complete shutdown. And the past 3 years of my life, since just having this information and knowing that I've been through what I've been through, has been the hardest 3 years of my entire life. And probably things get easier, things get harder, but like I look back at it and I think, and I mind map and I track the last 3 years of my life, and they have been physically the worst. Like, it's been the worst shape I've ever been, because I've been training in the gym now for nearly 6 years, 5 years properly, seriously, for only the past sort of like 3 years. Since I got my qualification in personal training is when I was able to take things seriously. But I've been, you know, I looked amazing a few years ago, and now it just, the mental side effects of going through something like that will stay with you for a lifetime. Now, you go on a self-healing and discovery journey to be able to understand why you do the things that you do, and you know, when you've been through these things, why you do the things that you currently do, why you're in the situation that you are in, and when you do them, all these kinds of things. And I've spoken about all this before in previous videos, because it is very important to understand and track and understand why you are the way that you are, because of the things that have happened to you, regardless of if they're your fault or not. And so these things that have happened to us have been, you know, they're horrific. So for example, I have struggled with addiction my entire life. Whether it's been video games, pornography, drugs, drinking, smoking, you name it, I've been there. Eating, binging, throwing up, anorexia, bulimia, I've been there, I've done it. I've been horrifically underweight to the point where I was nearly hospitalized, and I've been spent every waking hour of my life doing drugs for more than like 14 days in a row. I've been multiple days without any sleep because of the amount of alcohol that I've drunk, or the amount of drugs that I've done. I've thrown up more times than I can count because of the amount of binge eating that I've done, and I've subsequently just thrown it up. I've forced myself to be sick purging as well, because I've regretted eating all that food, so I go and throw it up all out purposely. Smoking, having to smoke all the time. Now, a lot of people struggle with smoking. It's a very common thing, but it is something that people do get addicted to. All of the things that have happened to me and all the things that I've done to myself are because of the trauma that I went through. Now, I've done these things to myself on purpose, and the other thing that really pisses me off about this alpha male mindset is that, you know, oh, well, just don't do it. Just do this and just do that. And I understand that in certain points of your life, we are in the Western society very lucky. Something 50 Cent said that really stuck with me is depression is a luxury. And I'm in very much two minds about this. Now, yes, as much it is a luxury, because sometimes you have to just work and you have to do things that you don't want to do. When I was traveling around Australia and I was heavily depressed, and I was homesick, and I was reliving my trauma in a different way, and I was going through things that I'd never experienced before, and I was having financial problems, and I was living by myself, and I had no one for support, and I was just, you know, everything was new. I did not have a choice. I had to work, no matter if I binged and purged, no matter if I drunk myself stupid, no matter what happened or what I did to myself, I had to go to work to earn money to pay the rent. I didn't have a choice. I didn't have anybody over the other side of the world that could save me. But that does not mean I was not depressed. And this is the thing where I'm in two minds about, because yes, depression's a luxury. When you look at depression and people take mental health days off work, I understand sometimes, believe I've been there. You need to sit down and take time off work so that you can allow your body to recover. In a perfect world, that is what you would do, because you have to treat any mental health problem the same as you treat any physical problem. So therefore, you need to take the time off of work. If you break your leg, you're not going to be able to work. And if you obviously have a mental health problem, you've got some PTSD or some severe trauma you're working through, you need to take the time off of work. I get that. I've been there. It's what I advise people to do. But sometimes you physically cannot do that. So you have to grin and bear the traumatic experience while you do the things you have to do. Believe me when I say, when I've been through it, and I've been through everything, I've spoken to people who are 50, 60, 70, 80 years old, and they say, you at 25, you've lived a lifetime. You've lived more than what I've done. And that is, believe me, if I had the choice, and this is the really shit thing about going through some kind of abuse, is that you look at it and everybody just turns around and go, well, I bet you wish you never went through it. And for most people, I can imagine, yeah, 100%, you wish you never went through it. But when you get on the other side, and you get through the tunnel of darkness, because it is a tunnel of darkness and it could last years. I'm still going through it, and until I really understand. And you know what? Everybody's going through it. My mum has been through horrifically traumatic experiences, and she's going through it. She's been going through it for decades, right? She got abused way worse than I got abused, right? And she's still going through it because it's so hard. And people who haven't been through it, haven't had that experience, do not understand. They will always look at it from a third party perspective and go, well, just forget about it and just move on and just get on with your day. And they don't understand triggers. They don't understand emotional connections to the issue, and then therefore why you do the things that you do. And it's a tunnel that you can get through. It's a tunnel that I have, and the best way to describe it is like a ship in the water, right? And ships in the water, whether it's a cruise ship, pirate ship, whatever you want to think about, right? Ships in water will have good days at sea and they will have bad days at sea. And it is not about the good or the bad day you have in any shape or form. It is about how you manage the ship. And if you manage the ship the best that you can in the way that you know works, then relatively what happens outside the ship can be brushed off. And you have to live day to day to day rather than week to week to week. And this is what most people don't understand, is that, and I've tried it, right? I've tried doing the 75 days hard challenge and looking that far in advance and just thinking, right, I'll do this and I can do that for that amount of time. But then you wake up, right, and you've had a nightmare about something, or you have been triggered by something, or you've seen someone, you know, that takes you back to that experience, or you've had something done, or you've had a bad day, or any number of things can happen which then take you back to that childlike state, which then makes you need creature comforts of home to actually be able to get through the day. And this is the other thing that people don't understand, is that traumatic experiences like this, and it happens a lot more for guys than it does for girls in recent studies. And it's unfortunate that most suicides come from male perspective. And this is why I'm here saying the things I'm saying, trying to help everybody. I'm trying to help everybody, but I'm trying to help men understand that it's okay to actually have emotions and feelings. You see all these people like Andrew Tate and stuff who just go, you can't let your emotions rule you. And again, I'm in two minds, because no, you can't let your emotions rule everything. You need to get up, you need to do the things you need to do, you need to have discipline. But you have to accept your emotions, and you have to accept your feelings, and you have to understand that they are there and they aren't going away. And they're not going to go anywhere. You can't just bury them and expect life to get better. You have to acknowledge them, process them, and let them flow through you so that you can actually get them out of you, so you can actually move on with your life and you can actually process the trauma. And this can be done through so many different ways. This can be done through physical activity. This can be done through emotions and grounding. This can be done through trauma work. This can be done through counseling. This can be done through therapy. This can be done through artwork. This can be done through drawing. This can be done through any number of things that will essentially help you get from point A to point B. And it's a reoccurring thing. 3 years ago, right, I needed to smoke weed to go to sleep. I had to. If I didn't smoke, I would not sleep, right? I needed to numb myself. Years before that, I had to drink, I had to smoke, I had to do drugs to get to sleep, right? And it got to such a ridiculous point. When I was out in Australia, I vowed to myself that I would not do any drugs, right? Especially not to the point that I was doing them before I left. And I did it. I went a whole year sober to this day. And I may have smoked a little bit of weed with my friends every now and then, but I don't smoke weed anymore when I go to sleep because I don't need to, right? And that is because that worked for me then. That does not now work for me now, right? If I try and smoke weed now when I go to bed, I'm up for hours. My mind's racing, right? Completely different version of myself now than I was back then. So what I need to do now is I need to do things, and I feel old when I do it, right? And I feel like I'm not 25 years old, I feel like I'm 70 years old, right? I need to read a book. If I'm sat on my phone watching TikTok and stuff, I just can't do it. And I know that has a different effect with the hormones and stuff that are being released, and I need that, you know, it's the serotonin and stuff, and it's not allowing my brain to unwind. But you know, that did work for me. You go back last year, I'd watch TikTok right up until, and I'd fall asleep watching it, right? And it wouldn't be an issue. Now I need to read, I need to stretch, I need to meditate. There are things that I now need to do to allow my brain to relax before I go to sleep, right? And then there's things in the morning that I need to do. Something I've been doing recently is having cold showers when I wake up. And I have found them so beneficial, so much more beneficial than I thought I ever would. I hated cold exposure when I was when I just came back from Australia. I loved it when I was in Australia because it was like 35 to 40 degrees and I was so hot. And so I'd go and jump in a nice cold shower and I'd do it twice a day and it was lovely, brilliant. Now I need to do it when I wake up to just get me ready for the day. If I don't and I just go and eat, and then I just feel like crap, right? And it's the same. So like fasting, it works for me brilliantly now. Like I don't eat for the majority of the day and I just sit down and eat for like 2 or 3 hours and I just eat whatever I want, right? And that works for me extremely beneficially. Cold exposure works for me, and these things might not work for me in 6 months' time, right? It's all about a cycle of trying new things and seeing what actually works, and it's okay. Not everything's going to work for you at any point, and that's what the trauma toolkit is. That's what our trauma toolbox provides. Because I've done it, I live it every single day, right? It's not like I'm talking out my arse and I'm just saying to you, oh yeah, our trauma toolkit works, we charge money for it. But no, I do it every single day. My mum does it every single day. My mum invented it. My mum has just given this to the NHS. The NHS have said, we need this, and we're rolling it out with our patients, every single person who comes through counselling. It might not be next year, but she's currently in talks with some of the best doctors in the UK about rolling out mental health facilities and actually understanding how doctors can provide better mental health to their patients. When I was young and I was going to the doctors because I had OCD and I had to wash my hands 20, 30 times a day, right? And I wouldn't eat certain foods and I would lash out at my mum and I would be physically abusive to other people and other children, right? And I got diagnosed with ADHD. All of these things are on my hospital records. They're listed, right? And the doctors missed that I was actually being abused because they aren't taught about trauma. They're just not. They're taught about physical ailments, and what they do is they put a bandage on the physical ailment that I'm dealing with. Okay, he's got ADHD. Let's try this. If not, we'll medicate him. He's got severe hand washing problems. Let's rather than understand why he's washing his hands so much, we'll just make him cream his hands instead of wash his hands, so that then he's still getting the same effect, right? But they didn't understand that I was washing my hands because I felt dirty, because I'd been sexually abused, right? They didn't understand that I was lashing out at other children. I was lashing out at my parents because I felt like they weren't protecting me because they were putting me with the abusers on a regular basis, right? They missed those very key parts of evidence, which we look at now. Me and my mum, we look at this and we look at this when we help people, and we look at this when we actually support parents, and this is why we have the Parenting Power Pack, because we know from a mother-son perspective, we know the things to look out for because we've been there. And it's not just me, I know I can see it in so many of in the people that I see, and some of my friends who have got kids, and some of the other parents that I know on a friendly basis. And I can't stand there and tell them your child's being abused, because they're like, you're not a doctor. And I'm like, I don't need to be a doctor to understand that. I am a survivor of abuse myself, and I am telling you 150%, whether they're being physically abused, sexually abused, mentally abused, or neglected, something is happening to that child. And it is blindingly obvious because I have had the experience and I've been trained, and I actually understand what it looks like to go through something like that from a personal level. So I'm telling you something's going on with them. And because I've done this before, I've done this before with someone, and they've just turned around and go, you have no idea what you're talking about, we never want to speak to you again, right? They then messaged me a year or so later and they said, you were right, it was so and so, we're so sorry, we should have listened to you, he's now in therapy, we don't know what to do. And it's a bit like, I know things and people don't like accepting this. And I've had it with my family very, very recently. Actually, they've turned round. Where was I? People just don't understand. And that's why we've developed the Parenting Power Pack. And this is why we have the Trauma Toolkit. So we can teach all of you people how to actually understand and recognize trauma from a young age, and understand these things, so you can protect yourself and you can protect your own child, and you can develop the tools and techniques to better yourself, prevent yourself from regressing all the time, so you can provide a better full-rounded experience for your child. And I know that's something that every parent wants. No parent wants to see their child get abused in any way, shape or form. And it's dealing with those emotions on a daily basis. And that's why we help the people that we do, and we help as many people as we physically can. But yeah, so I have been through it a lot, It's been horrible, it's been hard, and it is one of those things that people just don't like talking about. And especially men, they just hate talking about it. And that's why I want to start the conversation of it's okay to acknowledge your feelings and understand your emotions. I'm not saying you need to, for all the alpha males out there, I'm not saying you need to be a pussy about it. And I'm not saying that you need to wallow in self-pity, because I've done that. I've wallowed in self-pity for months on end, and I've just drunk myself stupid. But you might be going through something. And the other thing is, just because you go to the gym doesn't mean that you're healthy, and doesn't mean that you're not dealing with stuff. Just because you've stopped drinking and gone to the gym all the time doesn't mean that you have finished processing your emotions. And so actually dealing with those emotions, like I say, on a daily basis, it's not just, okay, I'll go to counselling once a week and I'll understand. It's go to that therapy session. That therapist should give you tools and techniques to actually be able to do on a daily basis, so that when you're not with them, you can ultimately give yourself therapy and give yourself the understanding of what is going on, so that you can thrive. That's all life is about, doing, thriving. You just need to stop surviving. And everybody will do it in different ways. Everybody will do it in different ways. Like I said, I've struggled. I will continue to struggle, and that is just life in and out of itself. Anybody who's been through severe trauma, PTSD, of any description, whether you're a soldier or a firefighter or a trauma survivor, whatever it is, you will live with that for the rest of your life. And you have to. It's there, it's in your memory banks. You have to live with it for the rest of your life. And that's okay. It is part of you. It's made you who you are today. And this is what earlier I was saying, that some people who haven't been through it just say, oh, I bet you wish that never happened. And I'll be honest with you, no. I'm not glad it happened, because it's horrific. I can't explain to you. And if it didn't happen, I might be normal. I might have a normal job. I might be just doing my normal things. I might have a normal relationship. I might have all the things a normal person would have, because I would be normal, right? But you have to understand, when you go through something like this, it is I don't think of the right word. I don't even know how to describe it. It's an experience. It's morphed me into the person that I am, doing the things that I do, and I love doing what I do. I love helping people. I love providing a service to allow people to just get more help and become better and just get stronger within and out of themselves. That's it. That's it. Like I say, I'm not glad it happened, but I wouldn't have wanted it to not happen. Because, like I say, if it didn't happen, I wouldn't be where I am, doing the things that I do. And the thing you've got to realise is it's a circle of life. If it's happened to me, it's happened to my mum. If it's happened to her mum, if it's happened to her mum, it's probably happened to her mum, right? And it will continue. The fact that we are here trying to break the cycle means that my mum tried her absolute utmost for it not to happen to me, and therefore for it not to happen to my sister. Unfortunately, it happened to the pair of us, right? Now, it happened on different levels, and it happened in different ways. But because my mum tried her absolute utmost for it not to happen to me, so there's something called ACE score, Adverse Childhood Experience Score. Now, my mum's got a 9 out of 9, I think it's 9 out of 9, or it might be 8 out of 8. I can't remember off the top of my head. I've got like a 3 or a 4, yeah, so quite low. And my only mission in life, other than helping people, is to ensure that my children have a 0. And I will take any precaution I have to ensure that my child has a 0 on the ACE score. Because I will not let all of my hard work, all of my mum's hard work go to waste by allowing certain people into my child's life. And that's why I don't speak to a lot of my family members, because they are very not understanding about trauma. They actually have no idea about trauma and about helping people in that sort of way and about dealing with their emotions. And they also will never be a part of my life, because a lot of them just don't understand, and they just don't realise, and they aren't considerate. I'm not going to go into detail about what's happened to my family, because that's not my story to share. That's their story to share if they decide to. I know my mum has spoken a little bit about it on different videos, and I know my mum will be happy to talk about it, but, she doesn't have any family because of abuse. And that's just the way it is. And if you want to ensure that you are putting yourself forward and you are the main character in your own story, and that you are a survivor and you are a thriver, not just surviving every day through life, because every thriver is a survivor. We all start surviving and then we start thriving, but you're still a trauma survivor. And if you're surrounded by people who aren't trauma survivors and have no idea about trauma and the effects it has on you, on your body, on your mental state, on your ability to do things, then they will not understand why you are the way that you are. You know, my family have always criticised my mum about drinking too much. They don't understand that that is actually a direct correlation because of her trauma, right? My mum used to be an alcoholic. It used to be that way, where she would be all the time. And she has worked and worked and worked and worked and worked to stop drinking and to cut it down and to do less, to do more for her children, and then subsequently do less for herself. But something that has taken me a very long time to realise, because I've always thrown it back in her face, very stupidly and very ironically, because I was a drug addict myself. So I sit there on my high horse and say, oh, you're an alcoholic, while I was off snorting cocaine and taking MDMA and this kind of stuff, right? So it's very stupid, but that's just how the brain works, right? Because I've for my entire life, I have always subconsciously blamed my mum for the trauma that's happened to me, because the same people that did it to her did it to me, or similar people who did it to her did it to me. It's all of the same family tree. I have subsequently always blamed her for my abuse, subconsciously always blamed her for my abuse, but that's not the case. It's not her fault. She didn't abuse me. She tried her absolute utmost to stop the abuse happening and to stop any abuse happening to me, right? But subsequently, she had to deal with her own abuse in her own way. And just because I don't do drugs anymore and I haven't done drugs for a long period of time doesn't mean that I won't do drugs again in the future because I've had a relapse or I've regressed or I've done things. And I'm prepared for that to happen. And that's why I have a very good support module around me. I'm very lucky to have the family that I do. I'm very lucky to have the partner that I do, because she has also been through traumatic experiences. She understands, and she's there to support me in any way, shape or form. And I'm very lucky to have that. My previous girlfriend didn't. She was very shut off to the idea. Her mum had been abused. It was very likely that she had been abused. I tried to speak to her about it. Just no, she wouldn't want to speak about it because she wasn't ready to allow the trauma to come out. Subsequently, she's now had a child, and the cycle of abuse will probably follow unless she's sorted it. I don't know. I've not spoken to her in a long time. So that's how the cycle of abuse travels. It just travels around in circles until you decide to do something about it. And if you don't do something about it, it will continue. And no matter what you try to do, if you don't sort your own trauma out, then some kind of trauma will be passed on. It might not be the same trauma, but something will be passed on. And it is really shit, and it's really not fair. It's very rare abuse starts out of nowhere without some sort of correlation, family relation of some description. Now, this does not, I'm talking about interfamiliar very specifically. I'm not talking about rape victims of, like, you know, people, you know, really weird guys and stuff just picking on low-life women, no, sorry, low-life men picking on women, like, out in clubs, like, you know, doing all the spiking and stuff. Like, that's very different to interfamiliar abuse. This is what I'm talking about very specifically. Interfamiliar abuse itself is extremely hard. Nobody wants to believe that some family member would sexually abuse, physically abuse, mentally abuse, financially abuse their own family of some description, but it happens so much more than you think it does, and it is horrible. So that's me in a nutshell. It's a long time. I've been wanting to do this video for a long time, but like I say, it's so much harder than you can possibly think it is, and you have no idea how hard it is to sit here in front of the camera and do it. And I've looked, I mean, if you can tag someone in the video that's also shared their trauma and shared the things that they've been through, please do, because I love talking to people who have been through these kinds of things and being able to help each other and stuff. Like, sometimes it's nice just to have, rather than speaking to a professional, that's what I found a lot, is that just speaking to somebody on your own level and your own wavelength, on just a friendly basis, and just saying, hey, I'm here if you ever need a chat. And that's sometimes all you need. And it's nice to have friends like that, but when you sit down with a friend of yours and you say, oh yeah, I was abused for over 10 years of my life, they're a bit like, okay. Yeah, it just doesn't go very well, do you know what I mean? Oh, breathe, whew. So you've got to have a war. And it's an internal war. It's an internal war every day, especially when your feelings and your emotions can get the better of you, because they always do. At some point, if you don't allow them to flow through you, then they will win. And it is hard. But there are just certain things, and this is where the discipline comes into play, because no matter what your emotions and your feelings have to say, you have to have the bigger stance, and you have to say, no, I've got to do the things that I know I've got to do. So like for me, with the unnegotiable side of things, like even if I'm having a bad day, like today has been a pretty bad day just because I did the things that I know I shouldn't do. As I didn't sleep very well last night, I didn't have a very good day yesterday, today, and then it accumulates. I've been doing the things I need to do, and I just feel emotionally burnt out. And there's very little that I can sort of do to help that, apart from rest. You have to know when to rest so that you can recharge the emotional and physical battery. Sometimes I've found that you can have too much rest, but generally speaking, life just sucks, man. Life can really suck balls. Yes, we'll go with that. That's going to be part 1, because I'm a bit lost for words what to say, but I know that they'll come to me at some point. So I feel like I didn't really do what I said I was going to do and talk about, but then it's very hard. I don't really know what to talk about, because I don't want to get banned for talking about really horrible things. So I need to be quite candid in what I say, but at the same, you just want to be able to, you know, be honest with people. And the other thing, like I say, it's, yes, that there's been a, that's okay, that's part 2, police investigation. Don't forget to like, follow and share, and if you have any coaching needs, if you have any questions at all, do not hesitate to reach out and let us know, and we will best advise you what to do and where to go, and if we can help you, we definitely will. But other than that, guys, I hope you have a fantastic day, and I shall see you in the next one.